Hello and welcome to the Essex Boys Murder Case Part 42. Before watching this video, I recommend watching Part 4 on YouTube first, as these videos are all about the key individuals and the murder victims' movements on the day of the 6th of December 1995. A quick mention to the Facebook page called The Real Essex Boys Murder Club. If you're interested, please feel free to join, as there's some great people on there with a lot of knowledge on this subject. So, just following on from the last video, which was the Pact Part 1, which was the Essex Boys Murder Case Part 41, and in my YouTube collection. What I'm going to do in these Pact videos is discuss if Mick and Jack made a pact prior to the murders of Pat Tate, Tony Tucker and Craig Rolfe that they would both shoot all three of them. In the previous video I discussed where the shotgun could have come from, as Darren Nichols never said where Mick and Jack got them from. I spoke about the article in the Guardian newspaper that journalist Tony Thompson did with the help of Darren Nichols after the trial, which meant he would have been paid for the story. In this article, Darren Nichols mentions Jack had two unlicensed shotguns, but Mickey told him he did not want to use them. Now, was time running out and they had to use Jack's shotguns? Darren Nichols said after the murders, Jack took the shotguns to his workplace and grounded them down using one of his machines, a plasma cutter, and basically grounded them into dust, so there was no evidence on this part. I also discussed if Darren Nichols was going to be more involved in the triple murders, and the gun he asked an associate of his, a Roy French, to get for him. Roy French said he could get hold of a shotgun from a friend from Canning Town, but for whatever reason, Darren Nichols changed his mind and says he no longer needed one. Roy French came forward and said this, yet as usual, Darren Nichols is denying he had any prior knowledge the murders were going to take place. In Darren Nichols' police interview, he said he asked an associate. He said associate. He never mentioned Roy French's name in the police interview, and Darren Nichols asked an associate if he could get hold of a firearm, but this associate, we know to be Roy French, got back to Darren Nichols saying he could not get hold of a firearm for him. I tend to believe Roy French's version of events with Darren Nichols' track record. He did want a shotgun, and he was also going to take part in these murders with Mick and Jack. They already have decided to use Jack's shotguns, which all three shotguns will be grounded down and turned into dust after the murders. Now the thing is, which makes more sense, is when Roy French got hold of Darren Nichols and told him that he can get him any weapon he wanted, Darren Nichols bottle went and said he no longer needed one. This was his way of pulling out, of taking part in the actual shootings, but he still played a part in the murders. I mean, it wouldn't look good for him, totally pulling out. I mean, he too would have been taken out by Mick and Jack, as he knew the murders were going to take place. I mean, he could have gone to the police and told them what he knew after the murders had taken place. So Mick and Jack would know this and get rid of him, so he had to take part in the murders somehow. He's leaving it to the last day or so before the murders would take place and say to them, he could not get hold of a firearm and his contact has let him down, but he's going to tell them he's still in. He's still committed to this plan of taking out Tucker, Tate and Rolfe. He's now going to use his role of being a chauffeur for when he had to drive Dave Trunley, DC Bird and their associates on the Clay Pigeon shoots. I mean, after their shoots, they would go on heavy drinking sessions and ring Darren Nichols to come and pick them up. This time he's offering to do the driving and being the getaway driver. Smart move on Darren Nichols' part. I did mention in a previous video, I think it was the three-parters of if Darren Nichols had prior knowledge of the murder location. I think it was the day of the murders 28, 29 and 30. In one of those videos I did mention that what if Darren Nichols knew all along after the murders that he always had it in the back of his mind that if all three of them were arrested for the murders, he was always going to turn Supergrass. Just talking about it now, it strengthens this. He pulled out of being one of the shooters, saying at the last moment he couldn't get hold of a gun he was promised. He tells Roy French he no longer needed a firearm, which means he doesn't have to actually shoot them. He can't get out of the whole plan because there's a big chance he too could be killed, so he tells them he'll be the getaway driver. Now, if he did have this plan all along, and if the truth came out, he would be charged with joint enterprise, and he too would be sent down for a long time. Maybe not as long as Mick and Jack, but it would still be a long time. So he always had this backup plan of saying he was just a getaway driver and would turn Supergrass. For people who think joint enterprise law didn't exist back in the mid-90s, by all means, Google it, but I guarantee you it's a common law that stretches back hundreds of years. So it did exist back then. If any of you don't know what joint enterprise is, there are a number of ways a person can be convicted for the crime in which they did not play a decisive role or even perhaps any role at all. I will give you an example of a person's role in joint enterprise. Say if two people set out to burgle a house and the occupant is upstairs asleep, one burglar goes into the house and the other keeps an eye out outside. The one who goes inside to burgle the house awakens the occupant and they come downstairs and confronts the burglar. The burglar attacks the occupant and kills them, then he will be charged with murder. The other person who is outside keeping a lookout can be charged under the joint enterprise scheme even though he never entered the property and took no part in the actual murder. If found guilty, they could get a slightly lesser sentence. They will be just as guilty as the one that did the murder. So that is the joint enterprise law. Before we move on with this video, I just want to go over a few things Darren Nichols says in his statement if he had no prior knowledge of the murders that were going to take place. Now, he's been told to get out of Mick's Hilux and get into Jack's Passat, a few miles away from the Halfway House pub. It's a cold night, it's snowing, and he sees Jack go to the boot of the Passat and get out two false registration plates and tries to attach them over the real ones. Why has Darren Nichols not asked Jack about why he's doing this? Why did he not ask Jack why he's trying to put false plates on? I mean, let's not forget, according to Darren Nichols, he's been told they're going for a meet with Tucker, Tate and Rolfe, and they're going to show them where a potential drug drop is going to take place. Why would you need to change number plates to do that? Unless Darren Nichols knew what was about to happen that night. Another thing as well, why didn't Darren Nichols ask Mick Steele why he and Jack are not going with them and the Essex boys to the meeting place to view the field the light aircraft is going to land in? All we know is Mick Steele told Darren Nichols, just prior to him switching cars about 4 or 5 minutes away from the Halfway House pub, that he had to go on his own as not to spook them. Not to spook them. I mean, we're talking about 3 of Essex's hardest villains. Why would they get spooked? I mean, they know who Jack is. They know he helps Mick Steele bring drugs into the country. They know Darren Nichols. He was low down the pecking order selling the drugs on for Mick Steele and Jack. What's to spook the Essex boys? I mean, that part of Darren Nichols' statement makes no sense to me. I mean, Darren Nichols had to stay out of the way of the Essex boys, especially Pact. He was leaning on Mick Steele to give him Darren Nichols' address and mobile number because of the dud cannabis that was brought into the UK. The Essex boys dealers weren't happy and was asking for their money back. I mean, although the Essex boys got their money back, they still wanted to teach Darren Nichols a lesson. He could not be seen if this plan was going to go the way he, Mick Steele and Jack Nichols and anyone else involved wanted it to go down. Like I said earlier in this video, he turned down the chance of buying a gun and told Mick, Jack and anyone else who was involved that he was still committed to going through with helping them taking out the Essex boys. He did not want to be the weak link. Now he's changed his mind about taking part in the actual shootings. So he's told them he will be the getaway driver. He has successfully distanced himself from the actual executions. And if the others are charged with murder, he could do a deal to become a supergrass instead of being charged with murder under the joint enterprise law. So, going back to Darren Nichols' second statement, he says he dropped Jack off at the entrance of the track and he drove off somewhere nearby. And let's not forget, he still thinks he's doing some driving for a meet about a future drugs drop that a light aircraft is going to land in a field. He has no idea why Mick Steele's gone somewhere else with Tucker, Tate and Rolfe. He has no idea why Jack has not gone with Tucker, Tate and Rolfe to wherever they have gone to. All he knows is Jack has instructed him to pull up in a small village at a track entrance. There's no sign of Mick Steele, Tony Tucker, Pat Tate, Craig Rolfe, no one. And Jack tells him to go wait somewhere close, out of sight, and wait for him to phone him. Other parts of Darren Nichols' version that doesn't add up. So Jack goes down this track and he knows exactly where he's going because he has done a recce days or weeks before the actual day was picked for the executions. He was in this area the day before the murders, had his phone pinged in the Rettendon area. So we know from that information Jack was in this area the day before the murders. He knows what time the 5-bar gate gets locked after staking the lane for the last time on the 5th of December. You would have seen Peter Theobald's friend Ken Jiggins come out of the track the evening before, so he knows the gate will be locked after 5 p.m. Jack knows this track will not be used again until the morning, which gives them plenty of time to carry out the murders. So I'm going to leave this video here today, and the last instalment of the Pact will follow soon. And the reason I decided to turn the Pact between Mick Steele and Jack Wombs, they had prior knowledge to the executions videos. I've decided to turn it into a 3-parter just because there's a lot of information and I wouldn't have been able to fit it all into one single video. So in my YouTube channel videos, the Pact 1 and is number 41. Pact 2 is part number 42. And the last one, the Pact Part 3, will be number 43. My last part shouldn't be too long to make. Before I finish up, I'd just like to thank the YouTube subscribers. I hope you've enjoyed the video. You also get to see my videos first, because I don't always put them on the Facebook group until at least a week later, so you get to watch them first. If anyone's watching this video and I've just come across my YouTube channel, you can join the biggest and best Essex Boys group on Facebook. I think we have over 30,000 members to date. We have new posts going on a daily basis. All we ask is you adhere to the rules and respect other people's opinions, as we all have our own theories of what we think happened that night. And last of all, I'd like to thank the admins who do a fantastic job of keeping the group ticking over. It's much appreciated. So until next time, take care.